Hello, darling, and welcome back to this episode of Follow Mistress Nurture. I am your host and your guide, and this channel is dedicated to all things cuckolding and kinky. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the kinky side of cuckolding, where BDSM is a part of the cuckolding dynamic and practice. Before we get into it, please, if you resonate with this content, give it a thumbs up, give me a comment in the comment section, share, subscribe. You really can't go wrong with those buttons. And if you resonate with me and are looking for some guidance and some help along your cuckolding journey, in the description below, you'll find a way to work with me one-on-one and ways that you can support me and the work that goes into this channel. So let's talk about BDSM. So first, let's just define it, right? What does it stand for? So the BD stands for bondage and discipline. The SM stands for sadism and masochism. And right in the middle, which is really pretty central to all dynamics that are kinky, is the submission and dominance. And the practice itself is the negotiated and consensual practice whereby the submissive relinquishes power and control to their dominant in exchange for leadership and devotion. So, in that power exchange, as we've talked about in the last video, there is a great amount of responsibility on both sides to understand what really works for all parties, okay? And it has to work for all parties in order for it to be healthy. No matter how kinky and how twisted you get, you can still be healthy as long as everybody has like that full body fuck yeah when it comes to the negotiations. So that is a big and important part of any kind of kinky play. But in cuckolding, where you are so tender and you are so vulnerable and there's so much emotion at stake, keeping both the players, the cuckold, the relationship, all of these safe and growing is very important, okay? So now that's being said, let's talk about bondage and discipline. One way that a very intimate way, in fact, of bondage in a cuckolding dynamic can be the chastity cage. And if you are unfamiliar, a chastity cage is a cage that is basically confines the male genitalia to the size and position of the flaccid, unaroused member. And what this does is it makes any arousal at least uncomfortable, if not downright painful. And it also makes the masturbation and orgasm very difficult, if not impossible. Okay, and of course there are some ways around it, but we'll just leave that for now. All right, and so that is a bondage technique. Now, when we incorporate discipline, I want to really point out that discipline is not the same as punishment. Discipline is using behavioral supports to shape the cuckold's behavior and responses. So anybody who understands behaviorism or who studied it understands, like, or even has heard of Pavlov's dog, which is that Pavlov was able to train his dog to salivate at the sound of a bell that that always preceded being fed. And what we will do as the leaders in the cuckolding dynamic is we will have a mind towards what does our submissive need in order to be fully engaged and be in a very fulfilling position as the submissive. And the chastity cage can do a great deal of helping the submissive to learn to be focused. It gives the submissive the kind of the physical reminders of where they are, where their place is in the dynamic, and kind of on a more emotional and relational level. When you cage your cuck and you are with your bull, what happens there is that the cage can really be not only a reminder of, you know, the sexy stuff that's going on, but also it's a symbol of belonging for many, right? If you're holding your cuck's key and he is in the cage while you are out with your bull, it can be a beautiful reminder to your cuck that he belongs, that there's a place for him, and that he is cared for even when you are not there or are engaged with somebody else. So that's a really great example of how bondage can be used in the process of discipline and training your cuckold, your submissive cuckold. Now, sadism and masochism is another side of this, and sadism and masochism is a very interesting concept for a lot of people. Basically, masochists experience a sexual arousal, pleasure, or satisfaction from feeling pain. And sadism is the pleasure in giving pain. Okay, and then we've got the central. This can be one of the most potent and alive dynamics that that a person or a couple can engage in, right? I was on the phone the other day, I think it was just yesterday, and the cuck that I was talking to was saying how, like, the greatest experience he ever had as a cuckold was with a woman who was able with him to be her full expression of herself, and that allowed him to be the full expression of his self, right? And it's the beautiful alchemy that comes together, and that is where the juice and the aliveness and the authentic expression of self, right, that feels so charged, so juicy, so alive. And this feeling, this of fullness, fulfillment, satisfaction, that is how we should feel at the end of a scene, right? At an end of a play session, the dominant, the cuck, the bull, everyone involved. we can see dominance and submission being played out in the female-led relationship is how it comes through in cuckolding very often. And that's where the cuck will submit to his dominant, to his cuckoldress, and she is the one who's in charge and making the decisions and directing the show. And oftentimes the cuck is in a place of support and obedience and making sure that that her life is made easier and more joyful through his attention and support. And she is ensuring his fulfillment and happiness in providing that leadership, that vision for where we're leading the ship and what his role is in helping it go. Okay, and that can be very satisfying for the submissive cuckold who really just wants to be in service to his cuckoldress, to his hot wife. So let me give you an example of the sadism and masochism that can be used in the cuckolding dynamic. And because I am both an emotional sadist and a physical sadist, I very much enjoy the incorporation of corporal punishment. And in this way, it can satisfy the masochism in my subs. So one of the ways that that corporal discipline can be used, whether and how you implement it is between your preferences and the limits of your submissive and their desires. But how it functions as actual discipline, not just the sadomasochism, but that as a discipline, is that both the submitting to receiving pain and then the lasting sensation of pain, of soreness, or in my favorite is in the leaving of marks that are physical reminders for the submissive that helps them to remain in subspace, to be in that place where they are gaining the most pleasure and satisfaction from their role, from being obedient and sweet little gentlemen. All right. I think that with this, we're about ready to sign off. In the next video, we are going to talk a bit more about humiliation play and how that can be incorporated into a cuckolding dynamic. And that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, darling, I will see you next time. Thank you for coming by. And again, check in the description below if you want to book a session. Mwah. Bye for now.